How fear turned a town against itself. The Salem witch trials did not erupt out of madness overnight. They were not the result of sudden insanity or mysterious evil. They were the outcome of pressure, belief, fear, and power, slowly tightening around a fragile community until it broke. This is not a story about witches. This is a story about people, a society built on absolute belief. In late 17th century New England, religion was not guidance. It was law, identity, and survival. Faith was not something people practiced on Sundays. It shaped how they spoke, how they worked, how they judged one another, and how they understood the world around them. To the Puritans who settled Salem, life itself was a spiritual test, and failure carried eternal consequences. They believed the world was a battlefield between God and Satan, not symbolically, literally. Every day was a struggle between divine order and demonic corruption. Every human soul was a target. Every weakness was an opening the devil could exploit. There was no neutral ground. You were either living in obedience to God or drifting, knowingly or unknowingly, toward darkness. Doubt was dangerous. Questioning authority was dangerous. Standing out was dangerous. Even silence could be interpreted as spiritual guilt. God rewarded obedience with protection and prosperity. The devil punished weakness with suffering and chaos. Nothing happened by accident. Randomness did not exist in their worldview. Misfortune was never just misfortune. Disease meant God's displeasure. A stillborn child meant hidden sin. Failed crops were warnings. Storms were messages. Accidents were judgments. Pain was not simply endured, it was interpreted. And interpretation always required blame. If something went wrong, someone had sinned. If a family suffered repeatedly, suspicion followed them. If a person experienced unusual hardship, people wondered what they had done to deserve it. Moral failure was believed to leave a mark, visible to those who knew how to look. Salem village was already under immense strain long before the first accusation was ever spoken aloud. Life was hard, uncertain, and often brutal. Winters were long and unforgiving. Food shortages were common. Hunger was a familiar presence, especially among the poor. The region had also been scarred by violence. Native American attacks on nearby settlements had left entire communities traumatized. Survivors fled into Salem carrying stories of burned homes, murdered families, and sudden death. These were not distant rumors. They were first-hand accounts, told around fires and dinner tables. Fear was not theoretical. It was lived. People slept with weapons nearby. Parents feared for their children. The idea that unseen enemies could strike at any moment was already embedded in daily life. When talk of invisible spiritual attackers emerged, it didn't sound impossible. It sounded familiar. On top of this, Salem was deeply divided from within. Families fought bitterly over land ownership and inheritance. Old grudges stretched back generations. Church leadership was unstable and constantly disputed, creating factions that distrusted one another. Wealth was unevenly distributed. Some families prospered, others barely survived. Resentment grew quietly, feeding jealousy and suspicion. Prosperity looked like arrogance. Poverty looked like moral failure. Outwardly, Salem appeared orderly and devout. People prayed together. They attended church. They spoke the language of faith. But beneath polite prayer and shared sermons, tension simmered. People were watching each other, measuring each other, judging each other. All it needed was a spark, and when that spark came, it fell onto ground already soaked in fear, belief, and resentment, ready to burn. The winter that changed everything that sparked came in the winter of 1692, inside the home of Reverend Samuel Parris. His daughter Betty, aged 9, and his niece Abigail Williams began behaving strangely. At first, it seemed like childish mischief. Then it escalated. They screamed for hours, their bodies twisted into unnatural positions. They claimed they were being stabbed with invisible needles. They shouted about dark figures watching them. No one could explain it. A doctor was called. He examined the girls and found nothing physically wrong. With medicine exhausted, the explanation turned to theology. The verdict was chilling. The girls were bewitched. Once that conclusion was reached, logic stopped asking if. It only asked who. Choosing the first targets. The girls were questioned relentlessly. Adults pressed them for names. Silence was not accepted. Eventually, the accusations came. Tituba, Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne. Each woman fit a familiar pattern. Tituba was enslaved, foreign, and powerless. Sarah Good was poor, homeless, and outspoken. Sarah Osborne was old, sick, and socially distant. None of them fit the ideal Puritan woman. That alone made them suspicious. Under threat and violence, Tituba confessed. She spoke of Satan, dark animals, and secret meetings. Whether she invented the story or repeated what interrogators expected didn't matter. Her confession validated the community's fear. If one witch existed, others must too. Panic becomes a system. The accusations did not slow. They multiplied. More girls began having fits. More people were named. Each accusation created permission for the next one. Fear became contagious. Neighbors accused neighbors. Servants accused masters. Children accused parents. Personal grudges resurfaced as moral crusades. A disagreement over property became proof of evil. A sharp tongue became a sign of Satan's influence. A successful farmer looked suspicious. A quiet woman looked dangerous. And once accused, there was no safe response. Denying the charge meant you were lying under the devil's protection. Defending yourself meant you were manipulative. Remaining calm meant you felt no guilt. Another bad sign. The rules were unwinnable. A court designed to believe. As prisons filled, the colony created a special court to handle witchcraft cases. The judges were not fools or sadists. They were respected men acting within their worldview. And that worldview accepted spectral evidence. If an accuser claimed your spirit attacked them in a vision or dream, the court accepted it as proof. If a girl screamed when you entered the room, that reaction was evidence. If someone claimed to see your ghost whispering to them, that was evidence. The unseen became more powerful than facts. The courtroom turned into a performance of terror. Accusers collapsed, cried, and convulsed in front of judges. The accused stood helpless, watching their fate unfold based on invisible claims. Reason had no place there. Confess or die soon, a horrifying pattern emerged. Those who confessed to witchcraft often lived. Those who maintained their innocence were executed. Confession meant admitting allegiance to the devil and then naming others. This transformed survival into betrayal. People confessed to crimes they never committed because the alternative was death. Some accused neighbors out of fear. Others accused enemies out of resentment. Some accused randomly, hoping the storm would pass them by. Truth no longer mattered, only momentum did. The gallows at Salem executions began in June 1692. Men and women were hanged one by one. 19 lives were taken by the state. Each execution was public. Each death reinforced the belief that the system was working. Then came Giles Corey. He refused to plead. Under law, without a plea, the court could not proceed. So they pressed him beneath heavy stones, demanding an answer. He gave none. As weight crushed his body, his final words were not a confession, but a demand. More weight. He died so his property would not be seized, preserving his family's future. It was the most brutal moment of the trials, and still not enough to stop them. When fear reached the powerful, the trials only slowed when accusations spread upward. Respected citizens were named. Church members were accused. Eventually, the wife of the Massachusetts governor was implicated. Suddenly, doubt appeared where none had existed before. Prominent ministers warned that the devil could manipulate visions, that spectral evidence was unreliable, that innocent blood was being spilled. The governor dissolved the court. New trials banned spectral evidence. Without it, the accusations collapsed. The silence after the storm. By early 1693, prisoners were released. The witch hunt ended not with justice, but exhaustion. Years later, judges admitted guilt. Accusers apologized. The colony issued formal reversals and compensation, but the dead remained dead. Families lived with shame. Communities never fully healed. Salem was left with a question it could never escape. How did this happen? The real lesson of Salem. The Salem witch trials were not caused by superstition alone. They were caused by fear combined with authority, by belief unchecked by doubt, by systems that rewarded accusation and punished honesty. No witches were ever proven to exist, but the damage was real. Salem matters because it shows how easily a society can lose itself, how quickly fear can replace evidence, how moral certainty can justify cruelty. The people of Salem were not monsters. They were convinced they were right, and that is the most dangerous thing of all.